You all have just totally messed me up. I don't know what to say now. Actually, it was 44 years ago on July 1st, 1974, that I walked into my office for the first time. I remember one of my seminary classes, my final year, where they asked you to kind of write down a life's plan and where are you going to be in 5 years and where are you going to be in 10 years and down the line. Boy, that never came true. I remember the very first week I was here, I was driving down Southwest Highway, and my Ford Fairlane that my grandfather gave to me broke down, and I coasted into Nagel's parking lot. And I remember, how back then the church was all about attendance and how much money and trying to keep on track, and things have changed a bit now. In fact, the guy that they're wheeling out of the church right now, who's very weak and pretty sick, George Hoffman. George is in his 90s now. And George is soon going to go into hospice care in his daughter's home. And I remember when I came here as a student, it was in February before I came here, I was interviewing with the deacons in what is now the nursery. And we were sitting around a long table, and the roof was leaking. There were buckets all over the place. And there was some tension in the air because the church had made it clear to the national church that they wanted someone finally to come here who had experience. And of course, they had no money, so they had to settle for a seminary student. And George is sitting there at the table in his fireman's jacket, and he might have been like 47, 48 years old back then. And he gets up, and he points his finger at me. And he says, if you're going to be like those other whippersnappers that came through here, and if you're going to come here and stay for a couple of years and get your feet wet, and then move on to something bigger and better, you can just get out of here right now. And the other members of the board are going, oh boy. The bottom line is that he said what they were thinking, but nobody had the guts to say it. I never envisioned that someday I would see George here in his 90s, and that someday I'll have to say goodbye to him. But that's maybe a different plan. It wasn't my plan. So I'm thinking, in the past month, where have you been? What have you been through? And who are the people you have seen? Have you been visiting your mom or dad in assisted living? Or are you in a crowded restaurant where the server obviously was overwhelmed and you were late? How much time do you spend in rush hour traffic? Have you been in line at Disney World? Have you been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to the hospital or the rehab center to visit somebody you love? Have you been at the bedside of a person for whom you said years ago, I will be with you for better or worse, for richer, or for poor? Have you been standing in line at the funeral home to pay your respects? Have you been getting in your car again to go to your daughter's dance recital or her softball tournament or trying to get your son ready for college? Have you been sitting in a family powwow where you're trying to make plans for who's going to take care of your disabled son or daughter when you get too old to be around? You see, life for each one of us is a journey. There's moments and chance happenings, unexpected turns, when everything in our life can change. And I've learned, and maybe you have too, that in the middle of all this stuff that we go through, this is precisely where God lives. This is where God's Spirit comes alive. And to some extent, we all need plans. We have blueprints. We have dreams and visions. But when you walk out that door after worship here this morning, you never really know what lies ahead. You never really know where this journey is going to take you. You see, you are the church. You are the embodiment of God's Spirit. You are the humble temple that comes alive and tries to make a difference in the world around us. You know, I think about our country a lot. I spent some time this week out back just kind of sitting by the flag and thinking about what we stand for. And I, like you, we know there's a lot that's wrong with our world. There's a lot of stuff that divides us. But there's one thing each one of us needs more of. We need a little more grace. I think of all the times in my life when things have not been the way they should be, and somebody reaches out their hand and says a kind word or touches you and lets you know that no matter what you're going through, somehow, some way, it's going to be okay. I know when my car broke down the first week I was here, there was a mechanic named Ken who reached out to me and helped me understand that it's going to be okay tomorrow. And in my 44 years, I, like you, have had tough times in my personal life where my life has been kind of broken. I didn't know what to do. And quietly and humbly, many of you reached out and said, somehow, some way, Don, it's going to be all right. You see, our country and our flag and our church, it's all about grace. Because you know and I know there is power in gentleness. There is power in kindness. There is power in humility. And moments of grace can save us and can change us. In closing, there's a guy out there named Ron. And I really don't know Ron. I met him because I was a guest at his daughter's wedding. His wife and Peggy used to work together years ago. But I really don't know him, but I found out he was at Palos Hospital, so I thought just for grins, I'd go say hi to him. I had no desire to go back. He probably had no desire for me to visit him, so I just said I'd go say hi. And I did, and he gave me that look like, what are you doing here? Well, I found out that he took a turn for the worse, and so I thought, okay, I'll go back one more time. And this time, we actually held hands and we prayed together. Now he's at RML. He's got a trach. Things are pretty serious. And Peggy gets a text from his wife saying, I'm thinking of becoming Lutheran. But I was thinking of moments of grace. I've been on the receiving end of many unexpected moments of grace. I wouldn't have been here 44 years if it wasn't for those moments. And I, like you, when I walk out of here, when you walk out of here, I want to be an instrument of grace to people who need it, because that's what life is all about. I'm not always sure what it means to be Lutheran. I'm not sure what difference it makes whether a person is Lutheran or not. But I do know this. Our church is founded upon the grace of God. And our calling is to take that grace, tuck it inside the guts of who we are, and somehow share that grace for somebody else who needs that strength and that encouragement. There's a guy named George who just had to be taken out of this room, who sat in a folding chair 44 years ago. And there's a guy named Ron who, like it or not, may become Lutheran, whether he wants to or not. And then there's all of us together. And what binds us together is God's gift of grace. Thanks for all you mean to me. The next 44 years are going to get better. Amen.